And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. This morning, America woke up to a travel crisis that seemingly came out of nowhere. There was no bomb, cyclone, blizzard, no terror attack, but every flight in the United States was grounded for the first time since 9/11. More than 1,000 flights would be canceled today, 11,000 more delayed after a ground stop that lasted pretty much all morning, and now the residual effects that'll probably go on for days. It was yet another disastrous American transportation story, which, of course, shocks us all. We were assured that making history and hiring based on diversity quotas would only make our society stronger. Having a gay transportation secretary with absolutely no qualifications to do the job was supposed to be our ticket to untold transportation prosperity. But after several negative stories, it's clear now that that's not the case. But obviously, we're not supposed to acknowledge that. Acknowledging that would be, I guess, anti-LGBTQ. In fact, it's safe to say the array of transportation problems we've seen over the last couple years are inherently anti-LGBTQ themselves, as is the attention being placed on them. The media, of course, has learned to stop reporting on inner city crime because that's obviously racist. Why are they so insensitive to report on the failures of our first openly gay transportation secretary? Why are they so anti-gay to point out a supply chain crisis while Mayor Pete was on a months-long paternity leave? How offensive that the public is even aware that Pete Buttigieg jetted off to Portugal for a week-long trip in September as the Biden White House bungled an attempt to squash a nationwide railroad strike. I guess the national media are still evolving on all of this and their virtue. As our current transportation crisis was unfolding this morning, Joe Biden jumped in front of the cameras to calm the American public by reassuring them that Mayor Pete was on the case.
I just spoke with Buttigieg. They don't know what the cause is, but I was on the phone in about 10 minutes. I told them to report directly to me when they find out.
So not sure what the problem is. Well, it may be the person who's in charge and what they've been focusing on for the last couple years. Aside from being gay, there's not one single reason why Mayor Pete should be in charge of American transportation. Looking through his resume, which is summed up here, the only time Pete and transportation even intersect was actually a story about how awful the roads in South Bend, Indiana had become after 6 years of Buttigieg running the city as its mayor. The South Bend Tribune described the roads as the worst that area repair shops can remember in well over 10 years, with lines of vehicles awaiting repair for pothole-related damages nearly every single day. So if Mayor Pete can do that to the roads in a small town, just imagine what he can do on a national scale. The other major problem Buttigieg had while running South Bend was cratering support from the black community in that city, which is, of course, far more critical to any rising star in today's Democrat Party than being competent or capable. And that may explain why Pete Buttigieg has spent the last 2 years pandering to the African American community instead of actually making transportation safe and effective for the American public. From Politico, in the 2011 general election, Buttigieg had some of the highest margins of victory in South Bend's black neighborhoods, a typical result for a Democrat facing a Republican opponent. But by 2015, Western South Bend gave him his weakest results after his support plunged more than 20 points in some precincts. Buttigieg's mistakes, well, a gentrification project for the city's worst neighborhoods that rubbed locals the wrong way, and also demoting the city's first black police chief after the chief surreptitiously recorded the rantings of racist cops. A disastrous resume for a budding liberal looking to run for president as a Democrat and now looking to do it again. So priority number one at Mayor Pete's new filler job / incubator at the Department of Transportation has been find or create any problem that can be considered race or equity related, such as racist highways, and humiliate yourself in national television interviews in an effort to rebrand yourself as insufferably woke.
Yeah, often this wasn't just an act of neglect. Often this was a conscious choice. There is racism physically built into some of our highways.
So that is basically what you've been hearing from Mayor Pete for the last 2 years. That's pretty much all he seems to chime in on. He doesn't really do very much. He takes a lot of time off, and he's just, again, in an incubator waiting for his big moment to come back. He's just waiting around at the Transportation Department and watching it devolve and fall into chaos like it did today. Racist highways he was talking about there, blaming racism, of course, for the highway system being built decades ago through the least expensive areas of American communities for simple reasons of more fiscally responsible eminent domain for governments. You'll notice liberals ignore that many highways were actually built through white neighborhoods at the time, which would over time become black neighborhoods, which, if you think about it, is not an indictment of the highways, but more an indictment of liberal policies like the narcotic of entitlements and welfare that have kept black people down for decades in this country. So racist roads is what Pete's been focusing on rather than updating the NOTAM pilot and airport alerting system, which, as you probably know by now, is what failed this morning, leading to our airline chaos. But you'll be happy to know that while NOTAM is clearly unreliable under Pete Buttigieg, the Transportation Department under Pete did have time to make it politically correct. Until 2021, NOTAM actually stood for Notice to Airmen. Now, thank God, it stands for Notice to Air Missions. Because not all pilots are men, of course. Some are women, some are also non-binary. Others identify as they, them, and in some cases they identify as mermaids. The FAA, under Buttigieg, spending a lot of valuable time shifting to gender-neutral language. A Washington Post article focusing on the very offensive term, and if you've got kids in the room, please, the earmuffs need to come out, cockpit. A very offensive gendered word. They're doing the important work over at the FAA and the Department of Transportation under Pete Buttigieg, while also reminding you that, oh, we're sorry, every flight today was either delayed or canceled.